Welcome to the second installment of Sambo for Mixed Martial Art. I'm Scott Sonnen, former U.S. National Sambo coach and champion. In this installment, we're going to be covering the basic sweeps and passes of lower half positional fighting. Now, hopefully you've already studied and reviewed the first installment so that you have the key mechanics down, the basic positions, as well as the core locks and a few of the more exotic advanced locks that I threw in at the end. Once studied those, now we're going to put them into play. Once we put them in motion, we have to defend those mechanics in order to apply our locks. With basic sweeps and passes, we'll be exploring how to take those into a more dynamic sphere. In the first sweep I'm going to teach you, he actually rolls away from the pain. It happens quite a bit, especially when he starts to feel that he can pass upstairs to upper half positional fighting. But he places himself in a position of compromise and ends up with a hip submission. Hip submissions you don't see very often because people don't know how to lock down the hips. The whole purpose of the saddle, to isolate and lock the hips. So if we start in full saddle, he starts to move away from the pain by turning away from it. I bump the leg across. Now his hip is in a position of compromise because I still have the saddle locked on. If I come down here, you can see that my knee's still in place, right? But he's trying to roll away from it. So see how I've caught his leg? I'm going to fish that to the opposite leg. Once I fish there, I'll keep it confirmed. And then by kicking my leg, like I'm going to do a heel kick, by kicking my leg and driving his knee down, I'm submitting his hip, causing this joint to eventually dislocate if he doesn't tap out. We'll give you a different angle. Okay, so we're in full saddle. He's trying to escape by rolling away from it. That allows me to lift my hips, bump his leg across. Once his leg's bumped across, he feels freedom. He feels like he can sit up and get away that direction. But I've hooked underneath that far leg, so he can't sit that out. Lift it up and switch legs. Confirm his ankle in place so that he can't free from this hook because he's going to want to get it out of there, especially when he starts to feel the pain. My knee's currently bent. I want to take my heel and kick my heel, pulling my toes back, driving this knee to the ground is what will work to dislocate this hip as I kick and extend, and that causes the submission. So one last time. We're in full saddle. He turns away. I lift my hips and bump. Catch. Switch. Confirm. Kick. Drive the knee down to finalize him for the internal corkscrew. In the next sweep, the shin box sweep, it is the bread and butter of your sweeps because someone not acquainted with your lower half positional fighting will try and pass upstairs without having first broken the triangle. Without removing the braces of the saddle, he is still in your position. You are still positionally dominating him even though he is on top. This is something that you have to become comfortable with because we are so acquainted with believing that top position is dominance. Just like guard is a bottom position, but it's positional dominance because of our ability to control his body. So, with the shin box sweep, We'll start in full saddle. Now, what he works to do is move over to the side. As he goes over to the side, he tries to come up. That frees my knee from the ground. He looks and feels like he's on knee and belly, but just a little bit angled off. This is comfortable for him, and it feels a lot more advantageous, but he is not any position. We have positional dominance, so you have to learn how to relax here. You have to learn how to take a break. See if you can spin. You have to learn how to relax with his knee, with him grabbing on, because you're not in any danger as long as you maintain your saddle. The sweep starts with underhooking his posted arm and just blocking behind his elbow. Taking your knee out in a circle around to the ground, not straight back because that'll push into this leg. If you extend it back and you push straight back, it just pushes into a post. And that might freak you out because you think that you don't have position anymore. You do, but you have to go to the missing structure. Here's a point, there's a point. Find the line and draw a right angle to it. Perpendicular angle, take your knee to that perpendicular angle, to that missing triangle point. And he pops right back over. Reposition your knee, choke up, get your fire pole down, and you're back in position. And he may be just juiced enough that he goes to try it again because it didn't feel like he had any control in that, so he'll pop up again. But again, you relax because even though he is in top position, you have positional dominance with your saddle. Now I'm going to show you a slight variation after I give you the basic one more time. Pop the elbow, knee out in a circle to the missing triangle point. Immediately reposition your knee down into the mat, fight it into the ribs. Okay, one variation as he comes back up is to take your overlacing knee, this foot down here. Take that knee and lift it up, pop, and he's going to land a little bit harder. Sometimes you have a heavy weight, sometimes if you're in class with somebody heavier than you, or if you're in open class competition and somebody outweighs you, or somebody that has more upper body mass and less lower body mass, you need to heft them up closer to your point of balance since you're mainly on your solar plexus right now. If you need to heft him up higher to get more balance, to rotate his body, you're going to take this leg and extend it, the overlacing leg, extend this leg upward to kick this leg up in the air. I'm going to give you a different angle to see that. So he comes upstairs to try and pass, extend this up, then pop the elbow and rotate the knee down. That lifts his weight temporarily up high for you to rotate for the shin box sweep. On the next sweep, you'll find the first variation on your crocodile roll, the croc roll. In the croc roll, instead of moving away from you, he tries to step over you. He knows now that coming up for a sweep is going to end up back in position again. And sometimes you'll be transitioning between those two, and I'll show you that in a second. But with the crocodile roll, both of you are elongated and you're rolling like a cylinder. As he steps over, you just maintain the saddle and go with him. I'm going to try and loosen it slightly on Ryan, but if you hold it tight, you'll notice that you end up squeezing on those nerve plexi. So hold on tight and let it roll. Full saddle. You're in position. You've choked down. You're moving. You've got your back brace in. You move to apply the submission. Now you're long. Because you're long, he can high leg over. As he high legs over, keep your cylinder tight. Hold on 1 second. Nope. Put that foot back down. Keep your cylinder tight. So elbow in, elbow in. That way you can roll with him. Take this foot and bury it underneath his far side. So when he rolls, you'll see it pop up. We go to our belly. He knee threads underneath and rolls back. Make sure that you reset right away because you don't want the roll, and this is what he's counting on. The reason that he's rolling is he wants to create slop here. As he rolls, you loosen up your triangle, and the saddle loses its integrity. We've gotten distance. You need to fire pull back down. Regain all of the components, the basic mechanics that we worked on disc 1. Let's go back and do it again. Although it looks like a basic motion for him, it requires a lot of positional maintenance for me. If I hold on, he can't break my saddle just by rolling. But I need to maintain that tourniquet effect around the leg triangle. So we're in position, hip fold, have my back brace in, I'm moving, and he thinks he can high leg out of this, but I roll with him. He knee threads back underneath. Now look at the distance. Immediately come towards him. Choke down on the knee so that you can fire pull back into position and lock that back in tight so that you're ready to move on to the submission. So the only other option that he has, one last time, is when he goes to crock roll out of it. As he goes to crock roll out of it, he ends up in a bad way right here. By stepping this leg over, and this is an advanced technique, because, and the reason I call it an advanced technique is because you're partially departing from the saddle. Plant this foot down, step across his hip, and lock him into place. Now, with his hip crossed over, we have modified structure. It's not a true saddle, but he can't get out of this without really fighting my heels. And I can finish him pretty easily, causing both Achilles and hip pain. So this is a way to block his crock roll. He steps over, break your triangle before he goes to his belly. Slide this across, hook that back in, bring these together, and hip up to finish him in this crock roll hip submission. In the second sweep variation of the crocodile roll, I'm going to show you what I call a gravity submission. Gravity is adding the weight of gravity, pulling down behind your hips, throwing into his leg. It's very painful, so when you're practicing it, start very light and give your partner space, because you will not believe the amount of force that will come behind this. You don't need very much force. Actually, all you need to do to tap him out is relax your hips down. So please be careful when you're practicing this for the first time till you understand how much force is involved. You start in a typical full saddle position. And to avoid the submission, again, you lengthen out and he goes to roll your cylinder. But as he goes to his base, you follow with him and brace out. Now notice how I place my elbow out. By placing my elbow out, I stop our roll. If I keep my cylinder tight, then we'll continue to roll and he'll be able to knee thread underneath. But what I'm going to do is elbow out stops us. I take this knee and I bury it on the inside of his thigh and lock this back between his sits bones so he can't get to it. This leg will also give me leverage to press his hips into the ground, which allows me to press behind his lower leg. So I blocked with my elbow, I move my knee into the inside of his thigh, I place this leg between his sits bones, and now I'm going to arch. And when I arch, the goal of arching isn't to apply pressure, but to move my wrist perpendicular to his ankle. It's a lot of pain because gravity is right behind it. So when I arch up, I'm going to give Ryan a break for a second. Extend your leg out. When I arch up, I'm going to take this arm and roll it so that now all of the weight of my hips, all of my body weight are now at a perpendicular angle to my wrist, driving into his fleshy calf, and hopefully his Achilles. But even so, you can get a calf crush out of this. With the leg here, I drive this foot, my overlacing fore, into his body so I get more leverage to lift my chest off the ground. It's a very painful submission, and it ends very quickly, as long as you don't try and use muscle of your arms. Okay, so we're in position, we go long, he steps over, lift your elbow up to block so that you go to base. Place your knee in the inside if it's not already, lock across, then lift. I'm going to be careful not to do it to Ryan too much. I'm going to lift and roll the forearm perpendicular as you lift up into space and arch your knees off the ground to finish the submission. For your second crock roll variation, going to base. Now, there's one little advanced variation I want to show you. It's a little favorite. As he steps over, when you move to here, grab a hold of this leg. By grabbing a hold of this leg, as you move on to base, going for gravity submission, tuck it in underneath. It adds a little extra leverage so that when you come up over top, well, it's difficult to go all the way to your belly because what happens to his legs is this. It adds on an additional lever that your hips are prying beyond. So I'll do it one more time slowly for Ryan to finish. And then you arch your hips, lifting your body. I'm not going to do it to Ryan again. Lifting your body off the ground. Just be careful because it's also an ankle submission. It's also a knee submission. It's also a hip submission. In the third variation of this sweep, the crack roll, you allow him to crack roll by just slightly loosening the tourniquet on your saddle. And by loosening the tourniquet on your saddle, his leg revolves inside your saddle and you end up in reverse saddle knee bar. It's a very slick submission and he feels like he's doing something successful. So you can bait him slightly by just releasing the tourniquet and letting him think, oh, I can roll out of this. But it ends up putting him in reverse saddle and in a bad way because now his back is turned and you're in knee bar position. So we'll start in full saddle. Everything's solid. Knee down, shin and hip fold. You've slip knotted behind and you have it rustled up between his sits bones. Everything's great. We're tight. But instead of having a real tight tourniquet here, I loosen it up so that he feels some freedom. Immediately, he high legs over. But what happens is I let him swim. So I just spiral underneath his leg and hook this underneath his chest. Now I'm in a great reverse saddle and ready to go with this knee bar. The knee bar, we're gonna give you a different direction in a second. The knee bar is just me coming back to brush what would have been hair, all the way behind my head, tight. From here, I lengthen out, lengthen his knee. Push my knees away, pushing into his sits bones. Only then do I lift my hips up to apply the knee bar. Okay, let's do that from an opposite angle. Okay, spin that way. All right, so I'm in full saddle. Everything is tight. Shin down, knee down, nice leg lace, tucked underneath. I release the tourniquet slightly so he feels freedom. There's no slop in here, but he feels that it's not tight. So he jumps over, but I slide with him. Now, he feels like, and this is pretty common. This is pretty common. He'll base out, right? And what he'll do is he'll just try and kick this knee out, pulling it through. But by tucking this underneath, reapply the tourniquet in reverse saddle so that as he tries to drag this knee out, well, he's having trouble doing that. So squeeze on. Tuck this underneath and keep it tight. Resist the temptation to underhook here. Resist that temptation right now, because I don't want him to inadvertently peel off your overlacing leg. So keep it tucked underneath. Lengthen out by tucking behind your hair, behind your ear, and get all the way behind. This means that you don't have fine motor control. You can control it just from the structure of your arm. It's one of my favorite holds to keep a leg tight because now I don't have to worry about my forearms. This is all my lat, my shoulders, and my chest. So by tucking this in tight here, now I can focus on fire pulling down, lengthening out, so lift my elbow up, push my knees into his body to separate that knee capsule. Remember that from the basics in DVD 1. Separate the sinew of the knee capsule, slightly rotate it, then apply the hips to finish with the knee bar. So one last time, I'm going to show you a slight variation to this. Up underneath, give him some space, relax the tourniquet, he starts to slide. Underhook, now watch. I'm going to tuck this leg underneath. and hit the opposite side, but keep his leg in place. This is very, very painful. So you have to be careful. I didn't let his leg twirl. So now notice that his knee pit's here, but his hip's over there. So he's in effect in a knee bar with a heel hook. It's awful to be in. So you don't need much. I don't need to apply my hips very much. It's just a little tap of my hips to finish him off. That advanced variation takes some time. I'll show it to you one more time. It's really cool, but you have to be careful with your partner on this one when you practice this one. Give some space. He starts to slide through. Keep him going through. Push this underneath and wrestle your leg underneath so that he stops right here. Yeah, he's toast. Come up, slightly tap up on this twisted leg, and he's done for that third variation on your crack roll sweep. The last sweep is actually an intermediate sweep in that it requires that you've mastered the leg thread and being able to maintain the tourniquet as he's crack rolling. If you haven't maintained this, you don't want to leave go of the legs. In the windshield wiper, you have to let go of the legs so that you can accelerate how fast he rolls. You do that in this sweeping motion of the arms. As you belly out yourself, by extending and releasing your arms, you're going to create what looks like a shrimp motion and cause his roll to happen a lot faster. I'm going to slow it down so that it's not actual speed, so that it makes sense about what we're doing. But I want you to pay attention to, even though I'm letting go with my hands, I'm not letting go with my legs. I'm even going to tighten it up even more so that the tourniquet's stronger, because I need to maintain contact and position on his hips. We'll start in a full saddle. I'm going to give you the opposite direction view in a second. This begins by him going to base. So as he steps over, he's going to try and place that shin down on the ground. Okay, come back. As he starts to roll over, I'm going to tighten the tourniquet even more and release these arms and let this shin go flat. But what I'm going to do from here is I'm going to pull my knees together and I'm going to move up at an angle. By going to an angle, I'm going to reset. And it's difficult to slow it down more than that, so we're going to give you a different angle on it. When you move from this base, let's do it one more time. Go ahead. He steps over. When you move from the base, extend your arms, sweep your body across, and that's what's going to thrust this hip all the way across so that you can reset and get that knee buried in. So with the windshield wiper, the whole focus is where you end up with your arms free and on his belly. So if we go to his belly, now from here, right from here, we can stop the motion. And what I can do is I can release. Now this is a different variation on the windshield wiper, but it's hands free. I take the top side of my figure four, this leg, and I kick it strong underneath this leg as we're rolling. And I'm going to switch legs. I'll show you what I mean. I kick it long, switch legs, and we end up across hip. This is pretty dangerous for him because as soon as I want to, I can switch into the knee bar. I'll show you in a full motion. I want you to pay attention to the leg switch. He hips over. Here it is. I'm going to release the top of the four behind the leg to pin it down. The bottom of the four is going to come behind it and immediately switch to the opposite side of the leg to pin him over to release into reverse saddle. So I'm kicking his leg over. I'll give you one more view on this. Really focus on this underside leg, kicking him over, relacing back to reverse saddle. We'll do it in full motion. I won't talk you through it this time. We'll just do it slowly and smoothly. For your reverse saddle. first of your passes is the most essential ingredient, and that's in understanding how to free your knee when he releases the strength of his tourniquet. So you're in full saddle, and there are going to be times when he loosens his grip because you're constantly fighting. You're constantly jockeying for position of defending your legs, attacking his legs. So in that volley, there are going to be times when he loosens his tourniquet, and that's the time for you to respond efficiently on pulling the knee. Is the distance between your knee and his leg triangle is your freedom. So if he has you in full saddle, your most basic pass is only this distance. You need to move your kneecap inside his leg triangle. If you can do that, you're free. As long as you can bend your knee, you're free to move on. So you may be defending position here, right? He's moving, and as soon as he takes a break, just for a second on loosening that knee, you create a brace and you press on the outside of his knee and pull your knee through. Once you do that, you're clear. And I know I'm making it simplified because people that are good at lower body submission fighting or lower half submission fighting, they don't hardly ever loosen their grip on their tourniquet. So work on the key mechanics. But there are going to be times when he is disadvantaged and you need to focus on attacking his triangle, because as you're attacking his triangle, there are going to be times as you're working through the different, we just created space, switch, go to the knee shrimp. All right? Once the knee shrimp is passed, now it's time for you to counter or to escape. So let's go through this one more time. Let's say there's a momentary lapse in his tourniquet. We wait for it or we create it. Brace with whatever you have available. It could be your elbow, it could be your hand. Rotate your knee down to the mat to escape it. Don't try and pull it back, because as you pull it back, look what happens. You run your thigh into the inside of his leg. Pull your knee down, screw it down into the inside of his fore. As soon as you clear, now you're in a position to reverse. So the first reversal is like the bow and arrow I showed you in the basic counters. But it's a variation in that you're coming over top of this leg with a big leap. Kick this leg high and lock on and start moving to drive his heel to his sits bones. So the knee goes down to the mat. Take this leg, kick it high, pull his heel up into the back of his knee pit. So as you pull it up, you've removed all of the space in his kneecap. Rehook. Pull back on this crossed leg. Pull them back so that you can move your sits bones to his sits bones. Give you an opposite angle. Spin this way, please. Okay, so I pop, move my knee shrimp through. Grab his heel, pull it up underneath. I'm giving you some distance so you can see. Usually there wouldn't be this amount of slop. Swing your leg high to come over top of your captured leg. Now, from here, I'm going to let this go for a second. You're moving this heel to his sits bone. Arching to cause this knee compression. Once you've caused the knee compression, the tap out's going to happen pretty quickly. So that's the first variation. And the escape that I want to show you in the basics, come back over here, please. Once you've knee shrimped, he's got a good, everything's great here, lapse in the tourniquet, brace, pop the knee down. So the escape is to bring this leg up underneath. I come up underneath, my leg's free, so all I'm going to do is I'm going to chase behind this leg to move up top. Once I'm up top, I can free this leg, move cross side. Now, I can stay up here for upper half positional fighting, or later I can show you the re-entries to move downstairs to go back and regain position on him. But that's all based upon this knee shrimp escape. Pop, knee down. Reach underneath, clear the leg, and chase behind it. Keep your knee on the ground, as you come up, you're going to free it to switch to the top half. the delta pass, we're working on opening our legs to reveal and release his overlacing 4, scooping that out of our sits bones. And the name delta pass came from river delta. Everything is heading up, releasing everything in between so that we end up passing through his guard and going upstairs. So first we release the overlacing leg, then we bump across the underlacing leg, and we're free. So the river delta. If we start in full saddle, the danger right now is that a leg being attacked. So the first thing is to come up and defend this leg and pull it up and in. You can hold on to this and multitask. While he's trying to attack this leg, you're going to free his overlacing leg from your sits bones. So let's spin this direction. Okay, so he thinks he's going to go for his submission. He thinks he has everything in place. Grab a hold of the side of your foot, switch to the opposite side. Now this hand's free to start to release this leg. And I've already released it by helping him up. That pulled him out of sits bones. But the release is underhooking here, underhooking his leg, then pulling the knee out. Now, if you guys are inflexible, this is definitely attribute driven. You have to work on your yoga. You have to work on things like the Grappler's Toolbox, which I published a few years ago. Those developmental drills will help you in increasing your functional range of motion, especially things like Prasara yoga, movement yoga. So when you drop your knee out, underhook and bump through so it's on the inside. Now you've cleared the overlacing leg. You can let him have this temporarily because he doesn't have the leverage to do anything with it. We're going to clear the top of his 4, put it on the outside of your shin so that he can't relace. Lift up your hips. Don't try and pull this leg because his hamstring is going to be stronger than your arm, your upright row. Bump your hips to slide it out of the way. Now you're ready to go upstairs. He may have what he thinks is a lock, but all you have to do is reverse your hips to go cross side. So let's do that again. The delta pass is very basic. Looks like there's a lot of minutia to it, and there is, but only in a dynamic sphere. The basics of it are you underhook, you move the knee out of the way. You come behind his 4 and you press it out, blocking it with your shin. You bump the underlacing 4, and then you roll to your belly over top of the far hip to cross side. So it's very basic, but in a dynamic sphere, there's a lot more going on. You're going to have to be conscious of the fact that if he's in full saddle and he's attacking this leg, you first need to defend it. Grab a hold of there you go. Now he's attacking, right? Grab a hold of your own arm, your own leg, then switch hands. So your near arm is grabbing a hold. That gives you the ability to work on the delta pass of underhooking, dropping your knee out, coming behind his shin and kicking that leg out. Bump across and feed him that leg. Let him have it for now. And now all you're going to do is the basic knee pass, coming forward. If he wants to keep a hold of it, he can as you move up and then switch to maybe mount or side mount or knee on belly because he can't control this knee. It'll be a difficult, and he'll move into his sweeps, of course, as we move upper half game. So one last time. In your delta pass, he's locked on. You're defending. You have a hold of him. Defending that leg. You underhook, bump, come across. Now, from here, you can add on some extra. Now this isn't permanent, but notice my shin on the back of his calf. I'm going to turn the blade of my shin into his calf and take this hand and pull in the opposite direction to cause a submission. He'll get out of it because he's not locked down. He'll release his arm to squirm out of this, but too late. I'm going to move up top. So it's only pain to release him so I can come to mounted position. Notice how the pain compelled him to move in a direction, right? Pain is usually not, unless you've locked him down and he has no choice, pain causes movement. That's why we need this structure. So this more advanced version of the delta pass is a bit of a shin crush, using your shin against his calf. So he has it locked on. You grab a hold of it, underhook it and bump. Come behind his shin and here's the juice. Pull this arm in the opposite direction. As you press that away, oh, he releases. He doesn't like that pain. That clears this. You're going to come immediately upstairs, place this knee down to move into mount for your delta pass. The second version of the delta pass doesn't move up to the upper half of the body. Second variation stays down below by transitioning over to a side saddle. This is actually a very common transition once you have your lower half positional fighting game down. It's something that you're going to do quite frequently, moving from full saddle to side saddle to full saddle. Once you get that transition, you're fighting everything in between and you start to lose distinctions of what actually is the saddle, but because you're just maintaining 3 to 6 of the mechanics at any one time. That's what the game really is. You're fighting to maintain as many of those seven mechanics as you can, but it's a trade-off. Under a dynamic sphere and a real live tension, you're going to lose some, and that's okay. Don't spaz out about it. Just sacrifice some of the mechanics so that you can maintain others and then work through that hierarchy that we showed you in Disc 1. Okay, so with the second variation of the delta pass, I reach up, grab, cross, switch, grab near, just like in the first variation, underhook, pop it up. Now we're back at the basic, right? This is the first variation of the delta pass. But instead of burying my shin in here and passing this leg over, I'm going to bring this leg to this leg and relace into side saddle. This hand he'll probably pop free. But now he has a real weak full saddle, so all I have to do is bump it across and rebury my side saddle down and go to town. I'm going to take this behind and start to move into position. I'm going to show you a really cool heel hook knee bar combo in a second. So really pay attention to the mechanics here or it won't work. Back to the saddle again. You're in full saddle. Okay, reach cross side, grab the outside of your foot sword, hook underneath, start drawing that underneath because eventually you're going to use this as a fighting zone. Scoop underneath to move for the delta pass and pop your knee to the outside. Now that you're in position, shin on his calf, instead of driving this leg away for the first delta pass, you're going to move into transitioning to side saddle. Pull this foot to this leg to relace into side saddle. Bump that leg across, bury your knee down to move into side saddle. Now there's all types of things that you can do from here. But the first thing that I wanted to show you was where this ends up. Can you scoot up this way? When you're in side saddle and we're on our sides like this, he's in a precarious position. So what I do is I move my head to the outside of his foot here. Once I catch the outside of his foot here, I'm going to use that as the fulcrum to drive across. It's a real sneaky move. And he doesn't see it coming because his knee could be bent, but I'm going to get this internal heel hook as I drive across. What I have to do is make sure that I'm burying the back of my neck into the nook of his instep. So we're here. I scoop underneath and I send my head up, moving my ear to my shoulder to confirm it in place. Bring my arms together, not for any power, but just to confirm any squirm. If he's sweaty, he might try and knee shrimp ineffectively if we keep this tight. It's too late, because as we rotate and look in the opposite direction, we complete the heel hook and knee bar. So one more time from the beginning. Cross, grab. Get out of there. Don't let him have it. Reach across. Keep it on run. Okay. Give me fight for this all over again. Okay. That's a little bit more live resistance than what it's like. You have to work for your foot to defend it. Re-grab. Underhook and move your knee out of the way. Bring your foot to your knee pit, this knee, and relace, side saddle. If he doesn't let go, you're going to get something later. Underhook his leg and throw the back of your head into his instep. Anchor your arms together and start applying the knee bar as you rotate your head on his toes to cause the internal heel hook and apply your hips into the knee bar to finish him in this advanced version of the Variation 2 Delta Pass. The knee thread pass will be your most important flow drill of working between maintaining the mechanics of the saddle positions. This is where, if you work on this flow drill, you'll really develop the kinesthetic sense of maintaining positional dominance and recovering positional dominance when you've lost it. It's a flow chain. Both of you get to work. Both of you are parallel. So if you begin, your partner has you in full saddle. Now, this is slightly attribute driven. So if you have thick, inflexible legs that have a little bit of chunk on them, you need to work on the basic drills, and eventually you'll develop some attributes that will allow you to have internal rotation on your hips. And that is pulling your leg up inside his fore. If you're having trouble with this, think of pulling your knee to your chest rather than pulling your foot to your head. This internal rotation takes a little bit more flexibility. This doesn't take very much flexibility. If you can sit in a chair, you can do this. Place that on the inside of his thigh. Okay? If he's tight in, place the shin on the inside of the knee, not the foot. The foot will take a lot more flexibility and it's a lot smaller range of motion. Yes, it'll look like I'm pushing with my foot at the end, but that's because it's at the end of a rolling lever. You place the shin in place, and as you roll off, the foot is the last to go. You push it far with the foot. But notice it was the shin that was doing the pass. So put it back on. Shin comes in place, starts to ferret underneath. And what you want to avoid is, okay, so if I try and push down against his ankle here, that's just going to lock it on even tighter. I have to push up towards his toes to get this knee pass. Let's do it slowly one more time, and we'll go on to the whole flow. Pass the knee off. As you come down, you want to bump. As you bump, you're now going to knee thread underneath and knee pinch temporarily. By knee pinching, this gives you an opportunity to establish more mechanics. Resist the temptation to try and go for a fast lock if he's slow. Go for position first so that he doesn't pass your knees and come up top. So, knee pinch. On the knee pinch, roll over to your opposite side and step across. As you step across, I'll show you from a different angle in a second, you're going to get your legs in position to prepare to roll back into saddle. So as you croc roll back, you now lace your slip knot in and you're ready to go. Let me show you from the opposite direction. So you lace in. Take this in. Again, if you have chunky legs, if you're a heavyweight, pull your knee up high, put it in position, roll towards the top of his toes, not towards his heel, to pop that off. Bump the leg across, thread your knee underneath, pause in knee pinch to get a good partial tourniquet. Roll down, extend your leg, get ready to apply your figure four. As you roll back, lock in your slip knot, tuck underneath, and apply the tourniquet as you fire pull down. So now, to make this into a flow drill, Ryan is going to take his turn. He'll place, thread that off, bump, pass the knee into knee pinch, roll across, reposition his legs, get ready to roll, and he's back into the thread. It's automatically my turn to pass, bump, knee thread, come over top, roll back. We're in position again. He gets to go. We're going to switch around. So let's keep this position. I'll give you a different angle on the whole flow. We'll go through it 2 times. Bump, knee thread, transition, come back, lock it in. Immediately I come into play. So you allow the speed to happen unconsciously just from perfecting the mechanics. So that you're not trying to go faster so much as by going smoother, finding the techniques, you take out all of the slop in working through your positional flow for the knee pass, the knee thread pass. Second variation on the knee thread pass involves transitioning to side saddle. You'll be fighting out of side saddle more often than not. Understanding how to fight between full saddle and side saddle and back again will make you dominate the game. And I'm going to give you a few variations and one advanced variation which will be very cool. So we're back to the same knee thread pass in that we pull in, we bump off, we clear, but now we're looking to, in just the basic version is to recapture this leg, lock over your top lace, bump this knee high, and move down into position for side saddle. So that's the basic mechanic that's involved in the pass. However, with dynamic resistance, a lot of other stuff goes on, so you have to multitask. In that, if he's in full saddle, turn this way slightly. If he's in full saddle, he's going to town working to get something on that leg. So we have to grab and hold on. If you pressure down, you can block his arm in, because the variation that we're going to do is, again, like I said, this is attribute driven. As I move this leg into place, I'm still holding on here. When I pop this off, I'm going to bump this leg that's across my body as I shoot underneath. This is why I call it multitasking. You have a lot of different things that are going on at the same time. You see how this is trapped? This is what I call a mouse trap. I'm going to pinch this together so this arm can't be freed. He's done now. Now I can take my time. As long as I keep these knees together, he's going to try and get this hand involved to try and free his hand. But by that time, he's toast. Now, the reason that I prefer what I call here, of rolling this internal heel hook like a conveyor belt, is because there's not a lot of operation involved. I can keep a hold of this leg and keep the mousetrap tight. Now the heel hook rolls up towards your ear because his shin is long on your body. Let's just go over that again. Let's get up to that point again. There's a lot of extra little techniques in here which you can extract and do independently, or you can do in this long chain. So he's attacking. You defend across first, then come up and confirm his hand down. Notice how I'm underhooking my own hand and coming down underneath his deltoid to block that in place. I've created a little tight triangle. With that tight triangle in place, he thinks he's still working on the leg. Well, what I've done is trapped his leg. Bring this into pass the knee, so bring it in tight to your body. If you have big, thick, chunky legs or a heavy weight, you might not be able to do this unless you drop a few weight classes. Bring that leg in tight, bump it off. Now here's where the multitasking comes in. So look carefully. As I thread underneath this leg with this leg, I'm going to bump this leg that's across my chest and then go to side saddle, all in one motion, to trap the mousetrap. Knees come together. Now, That heel hook variation, grab the inside, take your middle finger, grab the inside of his knee, pull it across your waist, underhook his heel, and roll it up towards your head. It doesn't take much, as long as you confirm this down. If not, there's play here. Take your middle finger, pull it across your hip, and then lift up. So one last time. Okay. Again, we need to defend. There's a lot going on. Cross, underhook, block his arm. Now his arm's stuck in here, right? And he'll try and fight it, and he'll try and shrimp his knee out, shrimp his elbow out. But we're going to keep it trapped temporarily. Grab your own leg, come up underneath. As you start to bump, all in one motion, past the side saddle, get that mouse trap on, finger his knee across, and work up into your heel hook, your inch or heel hook. Now the advanced variation that I want to show you, really, outside of this special DVD, I haven't showed these advanced versions before, so please practice the basics. I'm not giving you the advanced versions so that you practice them. Practice the basics, and these advanced versions make sense. They just happen. On this one, as we defend, okay, re-grab, I come up and bump. As I move this leg out of the way, what I'm going to do is, as I move the side saddle, he releases, right? But instead, I drive this across. Once this leg's across, I'm going to release my saddle and use him to saddle up. Lace over top, lace underneath. Now he's caught in a very painful way. As I squeeze and scissors my legs out, I'm going to cause a twisting knee slicer down here. But I'm not done with him. I'm coming up here to get this heel hook. This is just to distract him so that he doesn't mess with what I want, which is the slow confirmation of a nice heel hook right here. This Gordian knot, it's a variation on the Gordian knot. It takes some practice because you have to be aware of taking his posted leg and sending it across. So let's get back into the, again. Let's just stay right here at side saddle. As I move from side saddle, I bumped across at a full saddle using the knee pass, the knee thread pass. Take this leg and send it over top of your shin. Don't step over until it's over here. If you step over here, you're releasing your saddle and he's going to knee shrimp out and go to base. You don't want that. So keep your saddle on until he's close enough to thread over, thread under, and drive your shin up into his knee pit. Be very careful and gentle as you scissors your knees together and work up to finalize him with your heel hook. For the second variation, with a few extra bonuses on the knee thread pass. The mission control kickoff requires some attribute development. You need internal rotation on your attack leg so that you can bring that close enough to your body in order to compress it over top of his triangle. The name, obviously, for those of you that are well-versed in jiu-jitsu, came from the inspiration of Eddie Bravo's rubber guard, in that you need to be able to establish this contact with your attack leg. Now, on the upper half, this is attacking the neck and shoulder. On the lower half, it's in protecting your attack leg. So he's in full saddle, and we free this arm and bring this leg in tight. Now, he may be fighting this still, like getting for wrist control. He may be trying to bring this up and in. But if you have two hands on this, there's pretty much nothing he's going to do. He's just going to keep fighting with this until you fatigue. You can't stay here all day because you have about 40 seconds on your arm strength. So you don't want to waste those before lactic acid builds up and you become fumbly. So you want to pull that across your body and down in to bring it into place. Again, this is attribute driven. If you don't have a degree of range of motion, your natural range of motion on your knees, if you have tight knees or damaged knees, you might have to go back to the really basic sweeps. Okay? But as you practice this, you will get healthier. is this range of motion will help you develop strong but flexible joints, especially in the hips, knees, and ankles. Okay, so that's mission control right here. We bring this in tight. The kickoff happens by creating a false triangle. I've created a triangle with my legs that I'm going to use to attack his overlacing leg. What I mean by that is by kicking my leg high towards his foot, he can't resist this, especially if I anchor in tight here to break his triangle. I'll do that slowly again. Bring this trap leg across as far as you can, and when you can bring it no longer, bring it towards your body, place it behind his thigh, lace over top, kick with the back of your knee. If you want, confirm his knee so the underlacing leg stays in place to release the overlacing leg. Now look what happens in this relationship. To avoid a scramble, immediately go into a knee pinch. And you can go into the rest of the conformation to go back to full saddle. So, I'll give you an opposite view. Take this attacked leg, pull it up. As you pull it across your body, pull it into your body until you're on the inside of his knee. Once you're on the inside of his knee, overlace, confirm this underlaced knee of his, kick off towards his toes, spread out his legs as you move into knee pinch, roll over and back to lock in your figure four so that you're in full saddle. Stay right there. Do it one last time. Now once you're in position, you claim mission control here. Once you get to here, when you kick off, you can do a different version of the kickoff, of bracing across here. As you do, you can fire it straight. This variation is a little bit more difficult, but what it does is allow you to keep this and feed it into the knot that I showed you earlier, the Gordian knot. So, if you're slick about this, take that attack leg, fire it in. When you pop it, watch what happens. Pop and drive this through automatically. 3 points. Side saddle, lock underneath, Gordian knot, extend the legs, and finish them off. For your mission control, kickover. In the kickover version of the mission control, you're not just transitioning to full saddle or side saddle, you're automatically going on to upper half. And this is a little bit more sophisticated, but if you have a good upper half game, why not? So when you go to kick off, you're going to bump this leg and immediately go cross side. High leg over to cross side. And of course, you can continue upstairs if that's your game. But the point being that your options are nearly infinite if you start to look at the flow of the passes. One last view on this. Okay, come in. We'll do it from this direction. Okay, when you do the kickover, bring this leg into play. Put it over top. When you go for your kickover, immediately pass this leg. Step over, lift, come to cross side. To kick over. In your last pass, the knee hugger is bringing your knee as close to your body as possible and creating space that he leaks leverage and can't apply force to finalize the technique. So when he's in full saddle, the first thing that you would need to do is remove the tightness between his hip and your knee pit. If this is flush, then he has perfect leverage to finalize the hold. What you need to do is start by a knee shrimp. If you can't pop the knee all the way through, you've at least created space to fire this arm underneath. By creating this this hugging motion, you're going to pull your own arm tight to you. So if he holds on, that's hooked to his body. Let's say I want to defend that leg, but I can't reach it because he's extending. I can use the knee hug to pull close, re-grab, and move on to the other passes that I've showed you earlier in the DVD. However, also, we can move on to this pry bar. This top forearm can be used to create space to bring this leg into play to do the knee thread pass. But this is a lot more painful because I'm confirming this in place. That allows me to drive underneath and replace. Now, I'm going to show you an advanced variation of this knee pass when we cross his own legs, but I want to review that basic one more time. So we go to knee shrimp. We can't get all the way through, but we created space. So we hug underneath, pull it to our bodies. If we want to, we can go to defend our leg and trap his arm to mousetrap him, or we can stay on the knee hug, pry bar, create space, drive that leg off. As you pop it off, immediately start transitioning over to side saddle. Take his leg and bury it underneath. Now what we're going to do is a variation on the side swirly that I showed you in disc 1. Take his foot and drive it into his knee pit as you take his toes and drive them down like a trigger underneath to cause a knee slice. So let's do it from this direction. So we're here. Go ahead, all the way. I go to knee shrimp, create space, hug the knee underneath, pry bar that leg, get into place, start to pressure off because it's painful, hook under this far leg, shoot through, re-grab. Notice how I kept this in place because I'm going to drive this into his knee pit, take his toes underneath so I get an internal rotation, an internal heel hook. As I get the knee compression, drive that down. It's really painful, especially if we squeeze the tourniquet on. It lessens how much range of motion his knee has. So the knee hugger, use that as a launching platform to move upstairs into all of the techniques of trapping the mousetrap, to pass off into the knee thread passes, or to immediately go over into that advanced variation of the side swirly. Congratulations on working your way through all of the techniques on passes and sweeps. In passes and sweeps, you're being introduced to light resistance. And when you expose your partner to light resistance, you expose them to risk. Since our goal isn't to injure our partner or even injure our opponent, our goal is to cause submission. Submission is precision. It's elegant. You're working to create an environment where he has no choice but to bend to your will. He has no choice but to give up. Injuring your opponent is negligent and barbaric. It's gross. Sure, you can hurt somebody, but you can learn how to hurt someone in a weekend. You're born with that reflex. What we're developing is the skill, the elegant skill of being able to create an atmosphere where our opponent has no choice but to safely submit to our will. And that's what you want to do with your training partner. You want to guide the training intensity so that it's around 25% to 45% maximum when you're drilling in these type of flow drills. 45% maximum, and I call that is moderate intensity. It should never be hard. You should hardly be breaking a sweat unless it's hot outside. You should hardly be breaking a sweat. And furthermore, this is really only a training guide. And you really need to seek out personal instruction because as you are viewing this, as you're watching me, you're only seeing what it should be a reminder. There are little idiosyncrasies, little things in your movement that you're not seeing because we can't see ourselves. You know, what a coach does for you is it holds up a mirror to what your performance is. And by reflecting that back to you, you see, oh, I didn't realize I was doing that. The danger isn't in what you haven't learned yet. The danger is in what you don't realize you're doing that's hazardous. So seek out a qualified instructor, and then we'll see you on the next installment. Check us out at www.rmaxinternational.com, rmaxinternational.com, and see you at the next workshop.